URC round something or other. All the teams have played different numbers of games. There were 3 games on this weekend. Edinburgh and Glasgow were in action at home. 2 Scottish teams against Welsh opponents, Cardiff and Ospreys, and then Munster and Ulster in an all-Irish affair. I watched 2 of these games, and then the other one I watched the highlights. I've gone through the stats, so we'll have a quick chat about the games, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. As I said, the competition itself is still a bit messy at the moment, and I kind of am not looking too much at the big picture stuff. I haven't been doing any power rankings. I'm not worried too much about the log, although as in the table, or I'm wearing the Edinburgh jersey for a reason. Until we can kind of even out the amount of games the teams have played and how they work out how to get everything done, I'm just kind of taking this competition week at a time. It's not a criticism, it's just the state of affairs because of the pandemic. So yeah, we'll just kind of have to see how things even out over the course of things. The first one, Edinburgh and Cardiff. I watched this one on BBC 2 just now, actually. Watched it well after the fact, a bit of a belated watch. I did know the result when I sat down to watch. I didn't know the exact score, but I knew Edinburgh had got a win because I knew they had gone to the top of the log in the URC with this victory. Bonus point win at home over a Cardiff side that, if you feel like you haven't seen them play for ages, it's because they haven't played for ages. Like 11 weeks, I think they said. Because remember, they were one of the sides that got caught down in South Africa when the borders were being reclosed again, and it took them a while to get back, and games have just been called off. So, yeah, they were a wee bit rusty, and kind of unsurprisingly, I think, looked a wee bit better in the second half. Second half was a lot more even, but the first half, I mean, Edinburgh just cut them to bits. That's not to take anything away from Edinburgh. Edinburgh were absolutely lethal in that first half, and I'm so pleased to see a couple of those Argentinian wingers, Boffelli and Mojano, actually getting some ball out wide, because with the Pumas, we haven't seen that for a bloody long time. So it's very refreshing. They used to do it all the time, especially with the Hawaras, man. Them and Dalgee were lethal. So yeah, it's really, really pleasing to see these guys playing some really fun and entertaining rugby. I mean, it is tries. Mojano, Boffelli, they both get one each. Bennett gets a couple and Lang gets one, so it's a bonus point before half-time. But just the one try in the second half, and that's kind of late on. It's in the last 5 minutes or so. Cardiff can't get a try on the board until Owen Lane gets one in the second half. I mean, Cardiff, to be fair, did go through a bunch of phases early, and then it was turnover ball that sent Mojano over for the first one. So it was kind of turnover ball, and then it was kind of a quick fire double. So they were on the back foot pretty early after, it was like 16 phases or something they went through early, and then next minute they're kind of standing under their own sticks, which is a bit of a brutal one. So, yeah, and then they opted for 3 when they were like 15 points down. They did get the second one. They kicked the penalty in the first half, so they were at least on the board. But, yeah, it was pretty brutal. 27-3 at halftime. As I mentioned, second half is a lot more even. But, yeah, didn't help. They lost both their hookers. Cardiff had to finish the game with 14 men on the field, because when you can't replace a front rower, you need to have a player essentially not yellow carded, but you just lose a player because you can't contest the scrum. So it's kind of golden oldies scrums, as in they don't push. And I don't know if you guys use that term in the rest of the world. Uncontested scrums would be the official one. And James Botham had to go off after a really long period on the ground. They had to stretcher him off. So Cardiff did not bad, man, all things considered. All things considered. Going up to play Edinburgh, one of the top teams, after such a big layoff. They kind of get hammered a wee bit in the first half. Things don't go right for them. With all the adversity, they still do all right in the second half. But as I said, you've got to give credit to Edinburgh. They are just a really fun team to watch. Them and Connor at the moment, I love watching both these sides. They love spinning it wide. The wingers get a whole bunch of their tries. I mean, yeah, look at the try scorers. So it's the backs. It's the backs who get all the action. Richie could have got one, but there was a knock on and a tackle which kind of robbed him of one. So one of the forwards could have got one, but Yeah, it's a weird one with no crowd because you could hear that the commentators had to apologise multiple times for language coming through the mic because, with only not supporters there, but like the academy, was it academy guys or the non-playing squad members were there for Edinburgh, so they were making themselves heard and you could hear what the players were saying. So, yeah. I feel like the Cardiff commentary team is going to get in trouble because they called them Cardiff Blues multiple times, and I know that's going to grind some people's gears because they're not the Blues anymore. But I'm sure I've made that mistake myself at times. Anyway, I mean, the match stats finish kind of lopsided. Possession 53-47, but territories 44-56. So Edinburgh get the first, Cardiff get the second. Clean breaks though, 11-4. Defenders beaten 38-21. Tackles completed is pretty similar, 122 to 125, but Edinburgh's tackle rate's like 85%, which is pretty bloody good. Cardiff's at 77, which is kind of not the best. That's even Super Rugby teams wouldn't be really chuffed about 77%. Mojano cuts it up, man, 133 run meters, beats 7 defenders. Mark Bennett has 132 run meters and beats 10 defenders. Gilchrist makes 17 out of 18 tackles. Bradbury gets man of the match, 64 run meters from him, 5 defenders beaten, 2 clean breaks, 10 from 10 tackles. Hell of a shift. I mean, Cardiff, the lane train, still one of my favourite players, 82 run meters, beats 3 defenders. So he was, when he could get some ball, he was still looking dangerous. Holo makes 13 out of 13 tackles, but like I said, it was always going to be a pretty tough ask for Cardiff, but they'll just be happy to get a game. They'll be a wee bit concerned about the injuries, but yes, good to see them back in action. Edinburgh, their run goes on. I know some people are still not convinced by Edinburgh. They keep saying they're only beating teams down the bottom end of the table, but all they can do is beat the opponents they are put up against, and this is another victory, and it's a bonus point one for them, so 34-10, pretty bloody good, I say. Second one was Glasgow and Ospreys. I didn't see this one in full. I just saw the highlights. Kind of similar scoreline to the first one. They scored a few more points than Edinburgh did, and Ospreys scored a few more than Cardiff did. It seems to be another one of those ones where Ospreys do their thing, and they've got a decent position on the table where they're quite happy to keep the scoreboard ticking over. The thing is, with that strategy, is you need to not concede too many tries, and Glasgow scored quite a few. So that strategy kind of, doesn't pay off if the defence doesn't hold them out. I mean, they put in a heck of a defensive shift. I'll get to like the tackle count a bit later, but I don't want to discredit the work they did. It's just they probably didn't score enough tries. They got a fair few penalties, but just the one try through Evans. I mean, Glasgow get 1 through Forbes. It took 22 minutes. Like the early period kind of goes the way Ospreys want it to go. It's an exchange of penalties. Ospreys get 1, Glasgow get 1, Ospreys get 1, but then Glasgow get a try. That one was a bit of a wide ball, but then Ospreys get 1, so it's only a 1 point lead because they missed the conversion. But then, I mean, Tuipulotu, he got a double. He looked pretty dangerous, just beating defenders where he shouldn't be able to be beating defenders. So 17-12 at half time. Still very much game on, but second half, Mackay gets 1. Steps, he's looked dangerous. I mean, he's a big loss to New Zealand. I hope he makes the most of it over there because, he's a real firecracker player. And then Tuipulotu is also going to be a big loss to Aussie rugby. Another benefit for the Scots. So, they seem to be developing him really well because he's going from strength to strength. And then Fraser Brown got 1 at the end for the forwards. So, just the one. Evans got 1 for Ospreys that Anscombe set up. But, pretty tough. Glasgow had 63% possession and 54% territory. So Ospreys kind of living off scraps at times, seemingly. Run meters 601 to 321, so almost double. Clean breaks 7 to 3, so more than double. Defenders beaten 26-13, so that's double. But I mean, tackles. The Ospreys, Glasgow had to make 78, which is kind of low. But I mean, if you've got 60-odd% possession, that makes sense. You're not having to do that much defending. But Ospreys make 195 tackles, which is a lot. And certainly a lot more than Glasgow had to make. And their tackle completion rate was in the high 80s. So still pretty solid. And yet they still ship kind of, 5 tries? I mean, they only missed, 1 or 2 tackles? One key one on Tuipulotu for his second try, and then suddenly he's away. That's all it takes sometimes, eh? So, I mean, Tuipulotu, speaking of him, 103 run meters, 2 clean breaks, 5 defenders beaten, makes 5 from 6 tackles. Pretty solid shift for the young man. Daj, though, 98 run meters, 2 clean breaks, 6 defenders beaten, 8 from 8 tackles from him is also a hell of a shift. Griffith for the Ospreys, the flanker, 21 out of 21 tackles, big shift. Morgan Morris, 49 run meters, beats 5 defenders, makes a few tackles of his own. But, yeah, just not their day, eh? Ospreys are, if they can keep the games tight, they're very much a dangerous side this season. But if they fall off a few tackles and then go behind, it's kind of hard for them to come back, seemingly. But yeah, it's a weird one where they lost. Was it they lost one week to Connacht and then they had a big win the next week? Was it over Munster? I can't remember. But I know you can't write them off. When it goes wrong, it can go. Goodness me. My daughter must be an Ospreys fan. She's not happy about what I'm saying. But yeah, Ospreys, when it... Bloody hell. I'll have to go check on them in a minute. When Ospreys goes wrong, it does go pretty wrong, much like whatever's going on down that hallway. The last one, Munster and Ulster. Now, I caught this one more or less in full. I missed the first 10, 12 minutes of the first half and switched on pretty much as Zebo was getting red carded for a high tackle on Matt Lowry. Is his name Matt? I know his surname's Lowry, the fullback for Ulster, who looks dangerous every time I see him, even if he's not the biggest guy. Ulster had already scored a more try, which I missed through hearing, to give themselves a 7-0 lead. And to be fair, everything I've been reading about Munster this week was very negative press. Van Graan's leaving. Should we sack him before he goes because the team's playing rubbish? The attack's not the best. You know, it's just one-off runners and there's no creativity. And there was a bit of that in this game as well. To be fair, they were piling on the pressure at times and not able to get the ball wide, seemingly, when there was space out there. Kind of, just like tunnel vision. But yeah, they got a red card to Zebo when they're 7-0 down. I'm thinking the way these games have been going for Munster, if they're going to be tight, you know, that's going to make it a tough mission for them. And to be fair, the momentum was all with Ulster. They had a maul 5 meters out, but Munster's defence managed to kind of hold it. And I guess after about 10 minutes of being a man down, they really started to kind of find that extra gear. So despite being the man down, they got pretty angry, and it showed. Like some big tackles and some extra effort at the breakdown seemed to really put the pressure on the Ulster guys. They went 19 phases at one point, and I wrote refused to go wide. Eventually they knocked it on, but they had advantage anyway, so they kind of went back for the advantage. On the second one, the Munster guys opt for the 3 because the Ulster defence is seemingly pretty huge, despite the fact that they conceded another penalty. They did get warned. It was one of those moments where I was like, you've got them on the ropes, punish them, you know, if worst comes to worst. I mean, I guess you could muck it up and you get nothing, but even if you don't get a try, you might get one of these guys binned. Even the playing numbers up, right? Because they seem to have all the momentum, but sometimes that kind of discretion is the right choice, right? To be a bit more kind of tactful. And that's what they did. They took the 3. They hadn't had a lot of chances down Ulster's end. I can kind of get why they opted for the 3. So 3 points to 7, and then another Munster penalty before halftime made it 6-7. And I wrote, it's good momentum shift. Like, you go down to the halftime break, 1 point down, albeit with a man down. That's not too bad given the way that started. But from the restart, they conceded a pretty soft one. So, it was actually 10 points to 6 at halftime, which was just kind of killed that momentum, which Munster had been kind of building pretty nicely. The second half, again, it was Ulster pushing and going close. 5 metre line out again. I think that one got nicked in the air. There's a couple of them where Ulster will be kind of, you know, cursing themselves given this result for if they'd kind of been a little bit more clinical and able to execute those chances, or even opt for 3s. It might have been a different result. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but also credit to Munster for for just showing that kind of grit and determination to hang on. Ulster did kick a penalty on 56 minutes to make it 13-6, and I wrote a note, solid lead given the circumstances. 13-6, Munster's a man down. Munster, in recent times, not a team who's going to come back and score a couple of tries, seemingly. So you might be all right. But Ulster get a yellow card, and this is where I wrote, time for Munster to show us what they could do. And they did opt for the corner, and this time when they had a chance to spin it wide, they spun it wide. Casey with a bullet ripper pass out wide got the first try through Haley. They missed the conversion though, so it was only 11 points to 13. But yeah, it was a really nice long pass. I think it was Chris Farrell with a nice kind of carry to get them over the advantage line in the build-up. It was pleasing. The amount of times in the first half anyway where I would see the forwards trucking it up and Farrell standing right there, I'm screaming at my little computer monitor, like, come on, get it to that guy. He's going to get forward, but didn't always happen. There was a weird moment where Doak had a penalty shot, but he'd kind of snuck like a metre forward, but the TMO, I think, or maybe the crowd, because it was a small crowd there, limited numbers, kind of pinged him on it, and the ref pulled him back. But when the ref pulled him back, he gave him the option, if you don't want to take the shot, I'll let you take it from somewhere else. But he still took the shot, and funnily enough, he was short. Given the circumstances, it's a tough one. But 74 minutes, 75. Munster finally cracked through that Ulster defence, and a bunch of phases, and they did it. So 18 points to 13. That's the way it finished. Like, it's a low-scoring game. And it was frustrating at times, but you do have to... There's something about when a team wins, having played the lion's share of the game with a man down, that's kind of pleasing. Don't know what it is. Like, I still remember vividly the time the Sharks in Super Rugby came to New Zealand and played the Crusaders down in Christchurch and beat them despite losing a man for the majority of the game years ago. Still sticks in my mind. There's just something about that. But as I said, Ulster fans, I think, will be kind of cursing their lack of execution at times. Like, some of the decision making was not the best. But yeah, that's a losing bonus point, if nothing else. But given they were playing Munster with a man down and seemingly a bit of pressure on them, the coach going to change, and off the field dramas daily, and they're not going to re-sign and blah-de-blah. It might have been one where Ulster would be looking to kind of go for the jugular, but couldn't get it done. Stats, position, 56-44. Territory, 48-52. So Ulster with marginally more territory. Munster with a little bit more possession. Run meters, 360 to 210. So both sides in their meters per carry is like 2.3, 2.4 meters. So not a heck of a lot. So it was kind of a defensive... sets getting on top rather than the attacks kind of creating heaps of chances. I mean, you look at the clean breaks, it's one in the whole game, which is pretty low, and that was Jack O'Donoghue. And was that in the build up to one of the tries? That was a glorious moment. It kind of sticks in your memory because it's the only clean break of the game. I didn't realise it was the only clean break of the game until I looked up the stats, but there you go. Defenders beaten 15-7, so Munster having double or just over. Chris Farrell, like I mentioned, he gets 10 runs, so he's a busy character. Only a couple of defenders beaten, but it wasn't a game where there were a heap of missed tackles. Lowry for Ulster is always interesting, like I mentioned. A couple of defenders beaten for him as well, 56 run meters. O'Toole makes 26 out of 26 tackles, which is a Herculean shift in itself. But Munster come back with a man down. Credit to you, got to love that. It was not all kind of wingers tries like some of the other games, but it was certainly an edge of your seat one, which was good to see. I'll be curious to see what all the columns are saying about Munster this week, if they'll still be kind of going as hard as they have been. I guess with Van Graan leaving, they probably will still be sharpening those knives. But anyway, Edinburgh's top of the log at the moment. Remember, they've played 8 games. Leinster's played 7, and they're in second. Ulster's in third. They've also played 8. Glasgow's in fourth. They've also played 8. Munster's in fifth, but they've only played 7, so still got a game in hand. Ospreys is in sixth, and they've played 9 games, so one more than all the teams above them. At least one more. And then Cardiff are down in 10th, but they've only played 6 games. So like I mentioned, it's kind of all over the shop. I don't really have a good handle on how things are going. I am just taking it a week at a time and trying to enjoy the games as best we can. But yes, you guys let me know your thoughts on the week that was. What did you think of the games? Did you have anything else to say about Glasgow and Ospreys if you watched that one at full? Because I did not. Also about the other two. Yeah, what did you think of the games? Are Edinburgh the real deal? Or are they still only beating teams kind of much below them on the log? And Munster, are you happy about that win? Or are you still kind of cursing the fact that your team isn't generating a heck of a lot in attack? I mean, I think I'd be pretty pleased. A man down, I don't care how you win, a man down for as long as you were. To get that win, I think, over a team like Ulster has to be pretty pleasing. If you're Ulster, you're probably pretty bloody disappointed. Cardiff, as I mentioned, you're probably just happy to get some games. And Ospreys, it's one where your boys put in a shift, but still wasn't enough. Anyway, Glasgow, pleasing. 38 points. Anyway, better go. 20 minutes. You guys take care of yourselves. I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.